Today we are going to talk about the amplitude on a tangent graph. All right, we've talked about the period, widening or shortening in there. We have talked about the vertical shift, that is moving it up and down. That's what you did yesterday. And then today we're going to talk about the amplitude and how that's going to kind of stretch it out a little bit. Although it's going to be a little bit different because the tangent, it's a little different than sine and cosine because the tangent graph goes up towards infinity and down towards infinity. So it's not going to go any higher or lower because it already goes as high and as low as you want it to go. But in this case, it's going to kind of move those points, those sort of checkpoints that we've had, and it's going to shift those a little bit. So, it's like sometimes tangent looks a little like this. It's just going to kind of turn it around that middle point, kind of stretch it up or down or stretch it this way, right? That's how it sort of makes that higher or lower. So to go over a little bit on how that works and what that looks like, again, your amplitude, A tangent x, bx plus c. B told us about the period, or at least it helped us figure that out because we have to divide by it. C directly tells you how much to move it up or down. A, just like with sine or cosine here, is going to give us the new amplitude. It's going to change how high or low that goes. So here's an example on that one. We have 4 tangent of x. And in this one here, I've got my tools over here that I'm going to kind of just pull into the graph. And I left those tools for you guys down in your homework as well. So if you wanted to drag these over rather than making your own lines and dots or things like that, you certainly can do that. So in here, the period hasn't changed at all. It's got a multiplier of 1, so that's still for tangent is 180. Remember, it's going to spread 180, 90 each direction from the middle. Its amplitude in this case is now going to be 4 because that's the multiplier here. And it has a vertical shift of 0 because we're not adding anything on the end. We could say it's plus 0 in that case. So to set this up, our period is 180. So again, I want to go one direction 90. So I'd put one bound there and go 90 this way. So it's 180 in between those dotted orange lines that we have there. Maybe we'll make these just a little bit thicker so I can, that'll be okay. And then our vertical shift is 0, so that means I'm going to put my vertical stuff right in the middle, right? It doesn't need to go up or down at all, which means we have a middle spot here at 0. That's where that's at. So now how do we apply this amplitude? Okay, so far, all of this stuff has been the same as it has the last couple of days, but now for the amplitude, okay? Normally, here's what we would do. We would take this, we'd go halfway between, our middle point and the end of the period, about halfway, and then we go up 1, right? Normally, that's what we would do. But what the amplitude does is it multiplies this sort of middle spot. So instead of going up 1, we're now going to go up 2, 3, 4 from that middle spot. Same with this one. We're going to go back up halfway and then not go down. And normally we'd go down 1, but now we're going to go down 4 in this case, so it'll be down here. So it just takes that graph. It's going to be the same shape, but it just stretches that graph out a little bit. That's what that's doing. So now I can go up in here. Let's grab our curve tool, and I'm just going to kind of click again, asymptote here. So it's going to go up towards infinity, but this is the highest I can really go. It's going to come down and grab this point. It's going to go through here, here, and it's going to extend all the way down. It looks almost like a straight line. I mean, it really should have some curve to it, but that's the best I can do on here. And again, if I want to make sure that this is actually what the graph looks like, you can always go to Desmos just to double check yourself as well if you're wanting to see what that looks like for tangent x, right? There's that piece. That's kind of what it's looking like. It's that stretch all the way out. Now it's a little bit different here because this is in radians. So remember, it's going to not go from 90 to negative 90. Here it's going to go from, 90 in radians is pi over 2 to negative pi over 2. Yeah, so here's kind of like our orange dotted lines if I sort of match it up to what we had, right, and make these look very similar. There's our orange dotted lines, and we made this thing green. There's sort of our graph. Now tangent again is going to repeat, but all I want you guys to do is to make just this middle section. That's all we're making in the graph, and then we just sort of copy that through. So it's a little bit different. Here I'm just going to put our A value in so you can kind of see what's going on. It's not moving that very, very center spot at 0, 0, or same here along all these locations. The middle spot is staying there, but it just sort of stretches that up a little bit. So the more we stretch it, the more it starts to look like a straight line. So you can always go on to Desmos if you need to double check, see, does that look kind of right? You can always go there. And you can always, click up here and change it to degrees because that's what we're using. But it's, automatically going to be in radians, just to be a little bit careful on that if you're going back and check. So let's see. Okay. So we'll go back here. So that's kind of what it looked like. Again, it should have more curve, but that's what we're working with. But we've put the amplitude in there. It's up or down 4. So for a little more complex example with all of those things in there at once, with amplitude, period, and phase shift all at the same time, here's what we're going to look at here. -3, tangent, 3/4 x plus 2. Two of the things super easy to pick out. Amplitude is -3. So we'll talk about what that means. All that's going to do is just going to flip the graph over. That's all it's going to do in this one. So don't be too scared of that. Vertical shift is 2. That's what's being added here. So I'm going to go ahead and put my vertical shift in there right away. Vertical shift is up 1, 2. All right up there. Actually, let's make this thing a little bit larger so we can see the very top of the graph. All right. So we'll go drag this down a little bit. And there's 2. And now we need to figure out the period. Again, the period's going to be 180 divided by whatever this thing is. So just to put that work up there, and there's the whole equation. But we need 180 divided by 3/4, which is the same as 180 times 4/3, right? We want to be careful when we're dividing. That's really multiplying by the reciprocal. And then we take that, I suppose that's the same as 160 times 4, which is 240, right? So my new period is 240 degrees, meaning it should go 180 to the right, or not 180, sorry, 120 to the right and 120 to the left. My period's 240 in here. So that means I need to go about 120 this way. So there's maybe 90, there's about 40, there's 45 more. I need to go 90 plus 30. So that's probably somewhere in there, right? Each of these lines aren't 30 in here. They're, like 22.5 or something. So 90, 22.5, and a little bit more. I don't know, something like that. So there is my period. Okay, that's in there. Now to put in the amplitude. I'm going to put my center spot in. Again, it has been moved up 2, so it's up off the axis. And then to kind of get this amplitude in there, okay, we would normally do. So I'm going to put the normal spot in there. I go halfway over, so that's somewhere about here, and then I go up 1, and that's about right there. And there's about halfway over and up 1. But the amplitude is -3. So what I should do is go halfway over, and instead of going up 1, well, 1 times -3 is -3. I should go down 3 in this case. So I go halfway over. I'm actually going to update this and go 1, 2, 3 here. I go halfway over, down 3. And then same here. I'm going to go halfway, but since it's negative, I have to go opposite direction. 1, 2, 3 on this side, right? So it sort of flipped that graph over, whereas normally it's high on the right, low on the left. Here it's going to be high on the left, low on the right. Just a little bit opposite direction on there. That's what that amplitude does. And then here we can fill this in again. I'm going to go really high. Let's see if I can make this thing curve just a little bit better this time. Added an extra click in there, and it doesn't look anything pretty, but we have the main, I've got the main ideas in here. Again, those main ideas being, do we have the period correct? Do I've got the vertical shift right? Do I have identified the amplitude? And then do we kind of have the general shape, sort of, right? Not looking super specific, but I'm looking for the general shape. So those kind of 4 items that we have on there. So that's the main way that you apply amplitude. It's going to stretch the graph just a little bit more. So there's a quick notes check on there, and then 5 questions on your assignment. If you do, like, you're like, oh man, I don't quite get this, send me an email, put a post on there, and I'll try and get back to you as well so that you can get that stuff figured out.